Here's the big problem with setting goals or even New Year's resolutions. I've come across study after study, like this one which was featured on Forbes a few years ago, which says just 8% of people actually achieve their New Year's resolutions. And I came across another one on an educational blog which put that stat around 9%. Now whether the figure is 8, 9 or 10%, here's the thing. Many people set lofty and ambitious goals and then they get all stressed when they can't achieve them. I know that's what happened to me. People can achieve goals, perhaps because they lose motivation 3 or 4 weeks into the year, because their goals are completely unrealistic, or perhaps because of bad planning. Instead, I've moved away from setting goals and New Year's resolutions, and today I use a simple approach. I set objectives and key results which I use to run my business and also for creative projects. Here's how it works. A few years ago, I worked with a business coach. He recommended breaking the year up into 3 seasons. That's right, 3, not 4. Season 1, the first 15 weeks of the year, runs from January to early April. Season 2 runs from mid-April to early August. And Season 3 runs to the start of December. You may notice there's a little gap between each one of these seasons. This gap allows me to take a break or to take time off, or to spend a week reviewing my progress and figuring out what to work on next. And let's face it, not much happens at the end of December. And I found that breaking the year up into 3 seasons and picking 2 or 3 OKRs per season helps me get more done without getting stressed out or worried that I'm not achieving my goals. So what can you get done in a season? Quite a lot actually. You see, a season or 15 weeks is long enough to focus on something for quite a while and actually see some progress. But it's not so far away that you're going to postpone or put things off till the end of the year and then get all stressed out because you feel like you haven't achieved your goal. Here's a couple of things that I've got done in seasons over the years. I've written and published a book. I've trained for a marathon. I've recorded and launched a course for subscribers of my email list. I've started this YouTube channel. I've built up my blog to a certain traffic level with an SEO strategy. I've grown a social media account to a set number from 0. And I've landed 5 to 10 new clients back when I was working as a freelance writer. Basically, pick 1 or 2 things that you're going to focus on for 15 weeks. And if you assign a metric or a measure and keep track of your progress each week, I guarantee that by the end of the season, you will have achieved something that you're happy with or can learn from. Of course, to increase your chances of success, it's not enough just to come up with something vague or woolly, like I want to write a book or become a successful YouTuber or become a wildly rich freelance writer. You need to get a lot more specific about what you're going to focus on for the entire season. And to do that, I stumbled across a process known as OKRs, or objectives and key results. Management at companies like Google use something called OKRs, or objectives and key results, to plan out their year. And I found that this is great for running my small business and also for running creative projects. Basically, I'll pick 1 or 2 or sometimes 3 OKRs to focus on for a single season. Now, the objective basically describes something that I want to do, like for example, write a book. And the key result is an indicator that demonstrates if I've actually achieved the thing that I want to do. So here are some example OKRs. I will write the first draft of a 50,000 word book by April 15th. 15 weeks is enough time to write the first draft of a good book. And come April 15th, I should be able to gauge whether or not I've written 50,000 words. Or I could pick another one like, I will publish 25 SEO optimized articles on my site or blog by August. Or I could pick one like, I will grow my email list to 10,000 subscribers by December 14th. Now I can break down each one of these objectives into something smaller that I can track on a weekly basis. And usually I'll do this in a spreadsheet. A good OKR is usually SMART. That's an acronym which stands for specific, measurable, achievable, relevant and time-bound. When you're setting your OKR, you want to get really clear about what you're going to focus on for a full 15 weeks. In this case, I'm going to focus on writing the first draft of a book or on my SEO strategy. Next up, you're going to come up with some metrics that you can track each week. This is key if you want to gauge progress on your OKR. I'll go into detail with some working examples about how I come up with these. Ask yourself, is it achievable? A big mistake I made back in the day was setting wildly ambitious goals, and then when I'd see I'd no chance of achieving them, I'd get stressed out and demotivated. So pick a goal you can actually do in 15 weeks or a season, because remember, that's not so far away that you can afford to procrastinate. You also want to pick something that's relevant to whatever it is that you're working on. So in this case, I'm building a site for writers and authors. So writing a book could help me build my brand and improve my writing skills. And in this case, that's completely relevant to what I'm trying to do. And finally, you want to make sure it's time bound. And of course, we're going to pick 15 weeks as a constraint within which to work. So how can you figure out what objectives and key results, or OKRs, you're going to focus on for a full 15 weeks? Well, here's a handy printable that I'll sometimes fill out in Google Docs or print out. The first thing I'll do is ask myself, what theme does this proposed OKR fit into? It could be related to money, it could be related to creativity, or it could be something personal. If it's money, it could be launching an online course. If it's creativity, it could be writing a book, which I'm going to cover in a moment. Or if it's personal, it could be something like training for a marathon or going on a big trip. Next up, I will ask myself what a good, better and best version of this OKR will look like. So a good version could be, I will write the first draft of a non-fiction book by April 15th. That's pretty achievable within 15 weeks if I'm focused. A better version could be, I will write and edit the draft of a non-fiction book by April 15th. That's because it's easy to write a first draft, but it takes a few more weeks or a bit more effort to write a second and third draft. And perhaps the best version would be that I will actually write and publish my non-fiction book by April 15th. That's a lot of work, but perhaps I can get more done in a season than I originally imagined. Next up, I'll ask myself 2 questions. What do I have to do to achieve the OKR? And here I'll just brainstorm next steps or next actions. So in this case, I may have to create a consistent early morning writing routine, learn how to use a book writing app like Scrivener, or take a course about outlining a book. And if I want to figure out what I have to be to actually achieve this OKR, I'll probably have to be focused because I'm going to be writing 500 words a day every morning. And I'm going to have to be organized because I'll need to plan my work in advance so I can hit that ambitious daily word count. And finally, so I don't lose motivation, I find it's helpful to brainstorm 5 to 7 reasons why this particular OKR is important to me. So I put down 3 so far. So I want to write a book to build my business and my personal brand. I want to write a book to make an impact. And I want to write a book as it would help me land more public speaking gigs. And it's helpful to keep all of these in one place so I can review them if I find myself losing motivation or feeling like I'm not progressing on this particular OKR. On the printable, I've also included a progress report section. And each week I will populate this describing what I did and also how long I spent on the particular project. Now I found that this is relatively useful for easy to track projects, but for anything that's more complex, I will actually use a spreadsheet instead. And I'm going to show you how I use a spreadsheet to set OKRs for my business and keep track of them each week. Here's the OKR spreadsheet that I used to track my objectives last year. One of my objectives was to get 250,000 monthly sessions for my main website. And to do this, I figured out 2 lead and 2 lag measures that I tracked each week. So a lead measure is basically something that I can control or influence, and a lag measure is something that demonstrates if I stand a chance of achieving my objective. So in this case, I figured out the 2 lead measures. I was going to write a set amount of articles for my main site each week, or I was going to commission other writers who would produce these articles for me. But I also wanted to make sure that I published a set amount of articles on my site as well. As when you're publishing content at scale, publishing can be a bit of a bottleneck. So I also picked a target for the number of articles I would publish on the site as well. And every Friday I would log into WordPress, see how many articles were published and update this particular spreadsheet. I also set 2 lag measures. So these lag measures are things that indicated if I was progressing towards my OKR. So this was pretty easy to pick. I wanted to check the amount of sessions the site was registering in Google Analytics each week. And again, I would just log into my stats and see if I was on track if I was ahead or if I was behind on this particular OKR. And I also kept track of Google Search Console clicks so I could figure out if my SEO strategy was working. Every Friday, I logged into this Google Sheet. I put in the relevant lead and lag measures for this OKR, and I also populated the lead and lag measures for 2 other OKRs that I'd set for my business. And then every 15 weeks, I would review these OKRs and ask myself, were they too ambitious, or were they not ambitious enough, or were they still the right OKRs to work towards? And usually I would review what I'd done over the past 15 weeks, reset the numbers, and come up with something new, or perhaps iterate the previous OKR before starting the following season. If you'd like to create your own OKR sheet, you can simply duplicate the workflow that I showed you a few moments ago. It's pretty easy, but if you want to save yourself a bit of time, I've actually put together a template which you can purchase over on Etsy for a very small amount, and I'll put a link to that in the notes below this video. So if you want to try this approach, remember to come up with an OKR which is relevant to you. Pick something which is specific, which is achievable, and which is realistic. And make sure you pick 1 or 2 metrics that you can keep track of on a note-taking app or even in a spreadsheet. Do this once a week and you'll quickly see if you're progressing towards your OKR. And then at the end of the 15 weeks, look back at everything you've done, ask yourself what worked, what didn't work, and what you should do more or less of. This type of mini review will help you figure out if you want to continue with this type of OKR for the following season. I hope you found this insight into my process for setting OKRs or goals helpful. If you did, let me know in the comments section below. And if you have questions, don't forget to ask. Oh, and be sure to check out the templates on Etsy.